you go in and look at, I want to say it's in Los Angeles, 1940-ish. There's an event that takes place there where they actually shoot 1,400 rounds at this thing up in the sky.
Oh, my God.
And people were actually killed on the ground because of the shrapnel that came down and hit on the ground. But people's homes were hit. This was during the Japanese war, and so they assumed that this was the Japanese that were coming here. But they shot this thing, and there's lights on it. They shot it for, I don't know, well over an hour and never dropped it. So, it's called, I want to say it's called the attack in L.A., or I can't think of the name of it now. But it was a real event that took place over L.A., where they actually shot.
What year?
I want to say this was during the Japanese war, because they thought these were Japanese.
Okay.
And they never knew what it was?
Never knew what it was. Never came out and said. They got videos, pictures of it. They had these positions that were set up with all these different lights, so that if you came in as a bomber, they could put the lights on you, at night, and you could see where the guy was. Yeah. So the bombers fly real high and they fly real slow. And so they would use these big lights. Well, they've got every light turned on this thing, and it's lit up. You can see something in the center, but no one's willing to say it's a UFO. They're not willing to say it's a spacecraft of any sort. They just keep acting like, well, we really don't know what it is. I'm like, well, dude, if you shot at it for an hour and did knock it out of the sky and it disappeared later, I would say it's probably an extraterrestrial vehicle of some sort that's obviously not from this planet, because we've been not being able to shoot it down like that. But I think we're just a warring community anyway. I think we were, again, if you go back and look at the gods, if you look at the Greeks and how they wrestled, everything was based on your physical strength and being a better person. Is that alive and well today? Sure it is. I mean, look at football, look at hockey, look at the strongman contest, look at what men do to be men today.
Politics.
It's all about power.
Yeah.
All about power. So, how do you emulate that power? What do you like about it? And some people like it because it's money. Other guys like it because it's a position of authority. You put those two together, especially if whatever technologies you could get from a UFO, you would want to be able to use to your best military.
Right.
Yeah,
that's another thing Bob Lazar talked about, was that in Area S4, where they were studying the propulsion of these spacecraft and how they worked, they kept everything compartmentalized. Every different person that was working on a different part of one of those crafts, they kept all that information compartmentalized within those people. They didn't tell them anything extra that they didn't need to know.
If your deal was this little widget, that's all you did was that one little widget, and you had no idea what else was connected to this widget.
Right, and he mentions that there was hangars, adjacent hangars next to him, lined up with different craft in them. They didn't even let them go look at different spacecraft. And one of the things he talks about is that they don't want this getting out, mainly because they don't want another country to learn about it and try to use it to weaponize it against other countries.
Sure.
It all comes back to people just fighting each other for power and dominance. And
absolutely. Well, look at Space Force. Space Force has just been united here in the U.S. They actually just started taking volunteers into Space Force. I heard stories 4 and 5 years ago that's the programs that Reagan put on back in the early 80s, which were supposed to be the system that was set up there to knock out other nuclear devices that were launched at you through space. And instead, these guys were dropping titanium rods out of vehicles that were up in space. And when you take a titanium rod and you drop it through space and it comes at supersonic speed, the damage that it does, there's no explosion. There's no explosion. It looks like somebody under the earth pushed up a big breath of air.
yeah,
But it's unbelievable. So if you go back to the 80s and we were doing that, and I still think they're doing that today, when you look at a lot of these flights that are coming now up out of NASA with these new rockets they're launching up, I think they're sending up titanium rods. And I think they keep these things fed. They can send these things anywhere within 30 minutes. We no longer have missile silos anymore. All the missile silos have been decommissioned.
yeah.
Why? We have better means now. We can be anywhere. You can't hide deep enough from a titanium rod coming in out of space. And they went to titanium rods. It's the same thing they use with Abrams tanks. They don't use an explosive device. They shoot it with actually a titanium rod comes out.
Who's actually using those rods?
The U.S. is right now with the Abrams tanks. We use those on this today.
And it shoots out a titanium rod?
Titanium rod has a flechette. A flechette goes on both sides of it to fill the barrel up with this titanium rod in the center of it. And as the rocket, or as the flechette is shot out the front, they peel away and just this titanium rod comes out the front.
And where does it come from? Space?
No, it's actually, this is on the tanks, the Abrams tanks that are here
Okay.
now.
Okay.
They shoot them on the ground. So when you shoot another tank, all you want to do is kill the guys inside. So this titanium rod will pierce right through that skin and go inside and kill all the guys inside.
Jesus.
Very little explosion, other than, if you have a cook-off of explosive because you've got all the charges inside the tank, and those things get hit, they'll go off. But there's no explosion. And so when they started realizing the capability of a titanium rod shot at these unbelievable speeds, they see, wow, look at the danger, look at the damage it's done. And there's no real explosion. There's no pressure
How
weight.
does that work? What is it? Just
It's
goes so
just
fast.
exactly. You're coming in at supersonic speeds. So if what the guy that showed me these originally on YouTube, they were called tunnel bombs. And he goes, I said, so why are they calling them tunnel bombs? He goes, we didn't know what else to call them. These guys were supposed to be dropping these in Syria. The war was kind of going on.
Yeah.
It kind of gotten real crazy. And this guy was definitely with the CIA. And he was telling me how they were dropping these titanium rods. And I initially looked at it like, what part of the CIA are you actually with? I mean, so, and Dave had the authority to move satellites. So he's a pretty reliable source. And then when he showed me the videos, I'm like, dude, that's pretty impressive. It would literally take out a whole block of this city with no explosion.
Damn.
No explosion.
Wow.
He goes, you can't hide deep enough. You can't get into a mountain deep enough that we can't come get you. We can be anywhere with these things in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So now again, conspiracy. People talk about it. People don't talk about it. Is it real? When you talk about the astronauts and they see alien beings on the moon, or they talk about through Project Disclosure. One of the guys that's in Project Disclosure was a Navy photographer. He got picked up and matter of fact, he had a security clearance that I actually, if I wouldn't have saw these people sitting with him and he talked about the security clearance he had, I thought it was a joke because I'd never heard of it. But he got pulled into a room and he said that I had literally just started. And he goes, I thought my job primarily was to look at satellite footage and kind of make a determination as to what the building we were looking at, what that building did. Mm-hmm. And he goes, the guy that was in the room while I was there said, hey, come check this out. These are buildings on the dark side of the moon. And he said, I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, check these out. These are buildings on the dark side of the moon, and they're not ours. So when you now take a moment, you step back and you go, wait a minute.
Yeah, what
Come
the
on,
fuck?
man. But these aren't just regular people. This isn't just a regular guy. He's here with, matter of fact, the official that was with this group also was, he sat on a government board out of Canada. And when they brought him to the forefront, he was the first politician of real authority that came out and said, UFOs are as real as the planes that fly over your house. The U.S. has been dealing with a group called the Tall Whites for the last 15 years. And then he went down this whole thing, and you're like, wait a minute, Tall Whites, what the hell is that? The other guy came out and said, we've been in touch with 56 different races of alien beings.
Holy shit.
These, again, just aren't regular guys. These are guys with tremendous backgrounds that come from security clearance and DIA and NSA officials that are all part of Project Disclosure. And they wanted to come out. They were actually telling Congress, hey, we want you to come out now and put this big meeting on so these guys can come out. But the problem is if you come out too quick and you are being on the payroll because you're a retired military guy, we're going to come arrest you now. You've just given up secrets. Right. Or we don't want to confirm that what you were saying is true, but we're going to go ahead and screw around with your pay now. So now you're not going to get paid. We're going to create this problem. So a lot of these guys were really sticking it way out there. If you go to Project Disclosure, you can go to the website and look at it. Like I say, Greer is a great guy. He's factual.
Stephen Greer, yep.
What I like is, as a doctor, and he even comes out and talks about this. He goes, as a doctor, and my buddy here's a lawyer, he goes, we're under oath. We can't lie. If I lie, I could lose my license.
The website is SiriusDisclosure.com. SIRIUS.
Highly recommended.
Disclosure.com.
Again, dealing with educated men who come from great backgrounds, from the military, from science professionals, from the airlines industry. And when you hear the stories, you're going to scratch your head. You're going to be like, what? It sounds so unbelievable, but yet these guys have no reason to lie. The whole idea was about Project Disclosure and getting the information out to the American people. So doing so becomes a challenge in itself because everything just sounds crazy.
You would think if the government was going to sort of let this stuff out of the bag. They would definitely wouldn't do it all at once. They would do it slowly. They would slowly let the drip. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
they would slowly, the Pentagon would declassify the videos. Then they would slowly sort of release more things, so people just didn't.
And if you look too, I think the CIA just released 13 million pages. So this information is being leaked now. You know, here we are having this conversation about it.
Yeah.
So when you start to take into consideration, you know, again, who knows about Brazil right now? I mean, I haven't heard anybody really talk about it one way or the other. It's amazing to me that nobody has really talked about it.